Okay, so I believe we are recording. So I will go ahead and welcome folks. I'm gonna see if there I am. I will welcome folks to the September Artist Talk with Michael Weatherly. Michael's one of the featured artists exhibiting at MacRostie Art Center in Grand Rapids this month. You can view the exhibition and the exhibit video and some other information on our website, macrostieartcenter.org, under the exhibitions tab. And you can also see our other exhibits for the month, including Summer Sheringhausen. We've got an interview with her on there, and our Emerging Artist Gallery featuring Buckanaga Social Club. So that is at our website, macrostieartcenter.org. But we are super excited to have Michael with us this evening to talk about his printmaking and his process and his exhibition that's up at the MAC right now. I know we've had some interest. We've had some local printmakers stopping by to check it out. So we'll be glad to hear a little bit more about your work and be able to share that with folks as well. So welcome, Michael. I will
Thank you.
Turn it over to you, and I'll just kind of work through the slides, and if there's anything you want me to move on from or pause or whatnot, just let me know.
Okay.
I'll just let you get started.
All right. Just to let everyone know, if they have a question or something like during the talk, please just unmute and ask the question as you have them. So I'll be willing to answer them. So, yeah, the show was interesting to put together because there's a couple of new works that I'm working on, part of a bigger project, which back in the corners you can see there are two two big prints on doors. And this is kind of a step into more installation type, almost installation art, where they're 3D with the doors and the frames. I've worked big before. There's some other big prints in this show, but these new doors are kind of what I've been working on for the last 6 months, a year, and I'm in the process of doing 6 more of them. So they can be a challenge. In some ways, they were a lot easier for me to work on. They're hollow core doors, and they are fairly easy to carve. The toughest thing about them is I have to seal them a bunch of times because they absorb the ink, and it's hard to get the ink under the paper sometimes because it dries so quickly. So this is kind of a step out of my norm a little bit as far as doing something that's more installation art, and this is the first time that I've installed these, so I'm very interested to have them showing, and I think it turned out pretty good. The way Katie and I put the show together, decided where things were going to go. We placed those 2 big pieces first, and they seem to fit really well in the corners back there. So once we get to them, you'll get a chance to see them a little bit and ask some more questions. So this work was a piece that I did a couple years ago. I'm mainly a relief printmaker, where you carve into a surface and get your print. And the three things that I use are Sintra, which is a PVC, and I'll actually hold a piece of Sintra up right here. So it's just white Sintra. It's real thin, carves just like linoleum. I use linoleum and I use wood. The nice thing about this print, or the next few prints that you'll see is done on Sintra, is I can cut pieces away from the Sintra and cut areas out and ink them separately and put them back in like a jigsaw puzzle. It's very easy to cut, ink separately, and do this. This piece, there are 3 different ways that I get color in my prints. One is hand coloring. Another is multiple blocks where it's inked separately, or a process called chinclé. And this is the process called chinclé. And chinclé is a French term for gluing a thinner base paper onto a thicker base paper, and they become one. So the Chincolet process, you can see the purple and the yellow, is what I would do is ink my block. We're trying to show it here. And then put the tissue paper on the block where I wanted the color, and I'd put glue on top. And then I'd put the main backing paper, I'm just going to use this envelope, on top of that. And the pressure from the press will embed the tissue paper in the main backing paper, and the block will print on both. So that's the process of Chincolet. It can be kind of tough because tissue paper is really hard to work with. It's hard to get glue on and get it in the right place. But that is one of the ways that I get color on these prints. And this is another one. This was a series that I did a few years ago. I think in 2017, I worked on these through begin work on them in 2017 through 2018 and a couple in 2019. So this is another process with Chincolet. One more. The nice thing about these print, as a printmaker, you get multiples. You have the block, you can do multiple type prints and as many as you want. But the nice thing with Chincolet too is I can change colors and insert different colors in different areas and things like that. Mix up that block and change that block. So each print could be very unique. And then with the Chincolet process, the paper sometimes doesn't get in the same spot all the time, so it does make a unique print. So this was one of the prints that I did a few years ago. I had a show at the Cadets Gallery in Fergus Falls back in 2017, and wanted to work big. And I wrote a Minnesota Legacy grant and did 14 big woodcuts on paper, and then which incorporated 2 steamrolling events out in this area for kids to participate in a printmaking event. So this was part of that Minnesota Legacy grant that I did a few years ago. On the left, you can see the actual wood block. It's out of plywood and carved out of plywood, and you can see that I cut an area where I wanted it white. I cut the areas away and then inked it black. And on the right side, you can actually see the print on the paper, and it is mounted on hardboard. I did 14 of them. These are hand burnished, which means you take a baren. Once you ink it, you take a baren and rub the paper and rub the ink onto the paper. Very painstaking process. These are too big to run through a press. And so I always laughed. I said I was afraid to shake hands with people at this opening because my right arm was so much bigger than my left arm from rubbing these prints. So, but I like working big. I like this one's 7 feet tall by 24 inches wide. Another wood cut, or not, this is another Sintra cut. The nice thing about Sintra and linoleum, you can see that I can get very hard, dark black lines. I use a lot of black in my prints. That's the nice thing about linoleum and Sintra is it produces such a hard black line. Things like this. In this series of prints, you'll see a lot of them in the next ones. We're dealing with a lot of faces, a lot of emotion, trying to capture an emotion in the face. This one is actually, this is an actual woodcut. You can see that it's got a little softer texture to it. You can see the wood grain coming out, things like that. So when I use wood, I usually try to find an image that needs to be a little softer or a little more warm. I guess that would be the term would be warmth. Wood is warmth. linoleum and Sintra kind of relate to a little cold. So this is another Sintra plate. This is another way that I get color. What I did in this one is I did the carving with the face and the hand, and then I cut a piece of plexiglass the exact same size as the Sintra block, ran the first color, which was kind of a monoprint type background, kept the paper trapped in the press, and registered the paper and the plate, and then ran the black on top of that kind of reddish color. So this is a 2-plate process. Toughest thing about this is getting it registered in the correct position. It's another way that I can look. This would be a one of a kind because I can't repeat the background. This could be printed in just black and white or another color on that same size piece of plexiglass. It's another way to get color into my, which would be a multi-block print. So, same thing with this one. It was done on Sintra. There was a piece of plexiglass the exact same size that I ran that brownish color on and then printed on top with the black. It'd be a multi-plate lino cut. And you can, this would be something I could run in multiple plates. This is another Sintra plate that I did, and I just decided to do it in black and white. I like the image in black and white. It's something that I could run up same size plexiglass and do colors. That's the nice thing about printmaking is always a joke if a print falls off the gallery wall and it breaks or something like that. So usually you got, oh, something broke, and I said, don't worry about it, I'll just make more. Things like that. That's the kind of the joke with printmakers. The other nice thing about being a printmaker is I can have works in multiple shows and multiple times. Unlike a painter would do one painting and that be able to have it in one show. I've shown in many different shows at the same time with the same print. Same thing here. Now this is a good example of how I cut the Sintra block apart. The image was carved in black and white. You can kind of see where the blue area was cut away with the Sintra and ink blue. And then I had a plexiglass plate that was the same size that I ran the brown color on. So this is would be a 3-color print run with 2 plates. So the first plate would be run with the brown in kind of a background image, and then it'd be registered, the paper would be registered, and the plate would be registered. I'd ink the image black and the piece that's cut away blue and slide them back together and print on top of the brown. So that's another way that I can get multiple colors in a plate. So this would be a 2-plate 3-color run print. Another Sintra plate that I felt worked really well in black and white. And then we get to the door. This is the first door that I did. I kind of wanted to, in my past work, I've been trying to really just kind of work on displaying emotion, feeling, and things like that. And this is really, when I started thinking about this project, I had a lot of conversations with other people in the art world about how can I do these doors, what theme, and I came up with the theme of like addiction and things that or abuse that people want to keep behind the door. So this was made with you can see the carving on the inside of the door. The print actually is behind the door. So you'd open up the door and see the print. And this is kind of dealing with the theme of addiction and what's behind other people's door and what they might be dealing with, things like this. And in conversations with healthcare providers that I've had this idea in conversation with, they also said this is it's almost a portal, like these people are with an addiction that they're maybe hiding or trying to come back through that door. So it could be a way for them to get out of this situation too. It's like a doorway saying, I need to come out of this situation also, instead of hiding it behind the door and things like this. So the first two doors that I finished, I'm working on the next ones, are kind of dealing with the theme of addiction and what people might want to hide behind those doors, things like this. This print is hand colored. It's too big to do a multicolor plate and get registered and things like that. So, and when I hand color stuff, I usually use kind of washed out tones with either watercolor or really thinned out acrylic. And you can see the carving on the inside of the door. People, when I did the big prints, were really interested in seeing the actual carving. They're sometimes more interested in the carving than the actual print. So this idea of displaying them together, giving the opportunity to see them displayed as one full piece of artwork and more of an installation piece. So for the first door, it came out pretty good. I think it's a new direction for me, and it's usually not, printmaking is usually not seen as big or as installation art. And so it's coming, it's been a challenge, but I think it's unique and people don't see it very often. So this print is another cincher print, multi-plate, same thing. I had a piece of plexiglass, the same size, ran the brown on it. The blue was cut away like a jigsaw puzzle. And then the black and the blue were put together and run on top of the brown. The interesting thing about this print was this was done in 2018. It is kind of become my brand print is what you may call it. I use it on all my marketing, my business cards and things like that. Artists have what they call milestone work, pieces that mean a lot to them and mark a milestone in their career, things like that. There's a piece that hangs in my house, which is one of the first prints that I ever did, that is still in my house. It was the minute I knew I could be an artist. In 2018, there's High Point Printmaking in Minneapolis. It's a printmaking co-op in Minneapolis where members pay a co-op fee to use their equipment and things like that, and the presses and things like that. And every other year they have an international call, a worldwide call for printmakers, and they bring in a distinguished juror to choose the artwork. And this show had 950 submissions. And I think they chose 66 or 67 pieces of artwork. And this was one of the pieces that was chosen. And the juror for the show was the head of the print division at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. So it was a very distinguished juror. So this is definitely marking a milestone in my career, getting a piece into a show like that. I'm very, very proud of this piece being here. So this is a linoleum cut mixed medium print. Basically, it's done on a piece of the blue background is done on a piece of plexiglass, run through the press, and then the lino cut is run on top of it. So that's it. I think I did this in Sintra. So the areas that would be white are showing the blue that's behind. This is the second door called Pill Rosary. Same size door. hand colored. The pills are hand colored. Just kind of maybe another look at what people are dealing with behind the door. Very another thing, very hard to print sometimes. You can see, the one thing about wood and hand burnishing, you can see that it's hard to get real stark black lines, and you get what they call salt and pepper looks and things like that through the wood and things like that from hand burnishing and the ink. The toughest thing about this, getting the ink consistently, is this. I had to ink it in sections. I had to weight down the paper and ink it in sections because the ink was drying so quick on these doors. So it can be a challenge to get these printed. But the salt and pepper look also looks good, and it gives that feeling of warmth. Another piece that I did, and this was probably in early 2017, a linoleum block with Chincolay, same thing with the tissue paper glued to the main backing paper. So it's another example of Chincolay. One other one, this was done in 2017. This piece was featured on 300,000 evangelical Lutheran church bulletins in 2018, along with, I had two prints that were chosen for from Fortress Press. This was one of them, and another one was a crucifixion scene, and they were printed on, between the two of them, they were printed on a half a million church bulletins. One was the Easter Sunday bulletin with the crucifixion scene, and this one was the fourth quarter bulletin of their season. Another Chincolay print with linoleum called Woman 2. This was one of the first prints that I ever did with Chincolay. Woodcut called Sorrow. As I said, the difference between wood and Sintra and linoleum are wood tends to be softer. You can see the wood grain lines. In this one, a lot softer feel to it, not as harsh as with the stark black lines. Another one of the big ones that I did in 2017, this one's called The Garden. This one is 8 feet tall and hand colored, and it's mounted on hardboard, and it's done on plywood. A lot of cutting. People ask me how the best way to cut this is. When you do something this big, I used a Dremel mostly on these big ones. It is pretty tedious to hand cut something like this, and very tough. So, in using the Dremel, I can't say it wasn't easy. I think with the 14 big prints that I did, it took me a year to do them, between carving out the plywood and then printing on big paper. Big paper can be tough to deal with as far as, getting it on the plate and inking and things like that. So it can be a pretty tedious job. It's mounted on hardboard board, and I said it was hand colored. So this was one of the prints that I started doing in 2019. It's linoleum. You'll see the series of 3. I think there's 3 of these. Very linoleum, very hard black lines, and done, very stark and graphic. I have a graphic design background. I like using hard black lines. This is called The Living Room. This one's called The Mirror. Same one as the series done down in 2019. This one won an award at an art show in Howey, Minnesota, in the professional category. I won first place in the professional category for this print. And the third one of the series is called The Bedroom. Another print that's large print. This one's called Flowers. This one is also 8 feet tall. It's 24 inches wide. And done on plywood. As I said, it was done with cut with a Dremel. You can see all the white area. This one was a lot of carving to get out those areas. So, and then also in 2019, I started. I'm fascinated by book prints, in old books, book plates, things like this, and so I started working on some Celtic panels is what they're called, and these are images from the Book of Kells. So what I did is I took some images that I liked, drew some that were similar in style, and I do a lot of planning out of my prints in Photoshop. So the Celtic cross was a cross that I saw and I designed, and then I put the other panels, drew out the other panels, scanned them into Photoshop, and put them in the area. And then I basically designed the full print. This is done on linoleum, and very tedious carving. And this one is the second panel. Same thing where I took a cross, designed a cross, did some images, and incorporated. The nice thing about Photoshop is you can pretty much rearrange things. And I have a pretty good idea how things are going to look before I finish them and have them all planned out. So you can see the details. And I'm going to print these, and I'm actually going to hand color them too. I just hadn't had a chance to work on these. I like them black and white also. And this is another linoleum print called St. Michael. As I said, I really like the areas of the book prints, the Bible, and old books and things like this. So this was an image designed. Basically, I started with from a stained glass window, incorporated some other elements. So it's got a stained glass feel to it, kind of a graphic design, brick background, things like this. Another very intricate carving. This was part of the 2017 project for the Cadets and the Legacy Grant. This was probably my first dabble in installation or 3D sculpture. This is a woodcut called G-Tree, and it's printed on a mono print background, and then the woodcut is printed on top. And it's one column mounted on cement tubes. So it's two pieces of paper glued to the cement tubes, with the G-Tree print on both sides and just two different backgrounds like this. So I actually designed two of them because in the Cadets gallery there are two ugly posts in the middle of the gallery that I wanted to cover up. So I covered them up with the two columns that I did.
Okay, well that's the whole slideshow there. I can definitely go back to other images too if people want to ask any questions. But yeah, thanks Michael for walking us through that. It's always great to hear more about how the pieces are made and the different processes and things like that. So yeah, so folks, feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions or anything else that you'd like to mention or ask about. And I can, let's see, yes, I have a little notes here where the exhibit's up through the end of the month here, and thanks to our exhibit sponsor, North Homes, as well. And maybe I will stop sharing my screen here and we can just kind of go into, there we go. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I know one of the things I'd like to hear more about, Michael, is the press. Is there one press that you work with? Do you have multiple presses?
I actually have two presses. I have a press that I got in the late 90s, which is a small travel press. It's probably 20, I'm able to print 20, maybe 20 inches wide on it. And I had a bigger press length bed made so I can print a little bit longer. So it's very small, fairly small press. I use it I do a lot of teaching classes. Or exhibits that, if I go to and I might set up a press where, like, if I set up a booth or something like that, so people can actually see the process. So it's a small travel press. And then in my house, I have a Griffin 36 by 60 etching press that I purchased a few years ago. And it takes up the whole room of my house. And hopefully I'm in the process of building a studio in the backyard this fall or early next spring where it can actually get it out of the house and have more room. So I actually can show you how big it is. I don't know if you can see how big. There's the press in back right there. It takes up the whole room.
Wow.
In here. So that gave me more versatility as far as printing sizes, and it's 30 inches by 60, I think, or 36 by 60. So I can go pretty big on that. Obviously, I can't print the big doors or the big plywood wood cuts on it, but I can go pretty big on them. So.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Feel free to, you don't have to stay hidden. You can put your video on or your.
We'd like to know how long it took to do that Celtic carving.
How
many hours?
Oh, I would say that was probably, sometimes they actually draw it out. As I said, I plan things out in Photoshop and then transfer them to the linoleum. The biggest thing about printmakers, you got to work in reverse. That's the nice thing about Photoshop, is I can plan everything straight forward, and with one click of a button, I can reverse it and have it reversed. That was the toughest. When I grew up, when I went to college and was learning printmaking, you didn't have that option. You had to take it to the copier, reverse it, or you had to draw it backwards, or all those things. And that's the nice thing about Photoshop. So then transferring it to the linoleum cut, I usually use carbon paper, and then I fill it in with Sharpie. And to actually cut it was probably a good 25 hours of actual cutting. And really to get that intricate and things like that. So some of them could take, something like that, I probably would never do in wood because it's so intricate. The wood would usually splinter or fracture and things like that. And you'd be replacing pieces of wood and gluing them back in and things like that. So, but I would say probably 20 to 25 hours of actual cutting. And then what I usually do is I'll take a proof and then mark up that proof to where I need to cut more.
What those 2x8 panels, what are they made of? Are they like 1/4-inch plywood or what?
Yep, they're 1/4-inch plywood.
1/4-inch or 3/4?
They are 3/4-inch.
What bit do you use in your Dremel to carve these?
It is, there's a couple that I use. One of them is just kind of a big old tooth bit. It's not big, it's probably a 1/4-inch. Let me see if I can grab it quick, just a minute. Oh, I couldn't find it. It's out in the garage. Basically, it's just maybe a 1/4-inch tooth bit that's probably 1/2 inch big and a 1/4 inch round, and done on high speed. Safety glasses and there's, in my studio, there was sawdust in here forever from doing it, you know, using the Dremel on it, so.
What do you do if you make a glitch, like an inch glitch across the wood? How do you?
That's where, yeah, that's where you got to be really careful. What you would do is, if you're in an area that, like the big areas, I'm not so worried about. If I'm taking out a big chunk, I might be using the Dremel. I might even use it, if it's big enough, I might even use a chisel and things like that. On the areas that I know that I'm running into an area that I don't want to take out, I'll probably incise it with a knife a little bit so I know that it won't fracture into an area that I want black and things like that. So just to give it a little more give. But if you do take out an area, what you can do is there's two different things. Is if you can find the chip that you took out, you glue it back in and sand it down, or you put some wood putty in it and sand it to so it's smooth. The nice thing about if, you know, working on the big ones, you would never notice that I put them in. If I made a mistake and had to fill it in, just because it's so big, you'd have to really, really look for it.
Nice talk, Mike. Thanks. Nancy wants to ask you something.
Yeah.
What do you want to ask?
Really informative.
Wait, you didn't. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I did woodcuts when I was in college, and nothing like you're doing. That's just crazy.
Thank you.
Nice talk.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike. This is your mom talking.
Hi, Mom.
That second door
Yeah.
did. How did you get the color on that rosary so intricate?
Oh, it's watercolor paint in those areas that were white, you know, that were cut out. So it was printed black first, and then I went back and hand colored it afterwards.
Nice job. Nice
Thank
job.
you.
You have any other questions, comments? Well, if not, I will just say a big thanks again to Michael for being with us this evening and for putting on the exhibit at MacRostie this year. And you can visit our website, MacRostieArtCenter.org, and visit the exhibitions page to see the images again and read more about it and our other exhibits going on. So thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate you taking time out of the evening. And yeah, we will see you later.
Thanks, Katie.